Prologue, Aiden. It was at the banquet that the king noticed me. I moved quietly along the polished marble floors, scrubbing, my hands raw, my back aching, careful not to draw attention. I had been mute all my life. Nobody had ever heard me cry. Nobody had ever heard me scream. I was a shadow, a ghost, a nothing meant to be seen and ignored. And then his eyes found me. Dimitri, the king, draped in black and gold, seated on his obsidian throne, radiating power that made the room tremble. Around him, his harem moved like living ornaments. But he wasn't looking at them. He wasn't looking at the polished floors I scrubbed. He was looking at me. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to vanish into the shadows. Yet a part of me, a foolish, desperate part, wanted him to step closer. The king had noticed me, and nothing would ever be the same.
Introduction. You're listening to the audiobook of Collared by Fate, Harem Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by J.K. Jones and narrated by Michael Starr, Luke Staint, and Vlad Ranger. This story contains mature themes including mentions of suicide, and is intended for listeners of Werewolf Shifter Romance. All rights reserved. No part of this audiobook may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form without the prior written consent of the author. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the story.
Chapter 1. The King. "Who is that?" I demanded, my voice loud enough to cut through the murmurs and clinking silver in the hall. I did not look away from him. The Omega had hair white as snow that fell almost to his waist. His cerulean eyes reminded me of Frostvale's cliffs, a place I once called home before Kristoff's treachery had overrun it. Harper sat at my side, as he always did. Never idle, always watching, always careful. His robes were gold and lined with black, the colors of obsidian claw. The fabric moved easily around him, catching the torchlight on the beads. His short, reddish-brown hair brushed just above his ears. His peach-colored eyes were wide and alert, always calculating, always aware of everything in the hall. He was more than my head concubine. He kept the harem in order, managed whispers, and noticed things before I did. Loyal and steady, he served me without question, but I could see the spark of his own mind behind the obedience. I liked that. I liked knowing he could think, could act, could challenge me if needed, but only in ways I allowed. He was a jealous creature, so hot with malice that it made my blood boil and sing. He was from the Fox clan, and I relished in his possessiveness. All of my concubines knew not to cross Harper. I glanced at him, letting my gaze linger just a moment too long, testing the calm mask he always wore. He met my eyes without flinching, and I smirked. Even sitting there, quiet and still, he reminded everyone around us who I was. Harper was my balance, my shield, and sometimes my amusement. "I'm not sure, Your Majesty," Harper said, bowing slightly, keeping his voice low for me alone. He spoke slowly, carefully, as if every word mattered. I didn't trust anyone. Never had. The court whispered and smiled, bowed and laughed, and I had learned that even polite words could hide danger. Desire was weakness. I had survived by keeping it buried, keeping control. But the Omega, he didn't belong here. Not among my harem, not among the nobles, not among the wolves I had collected to secure alliances. Yet he stood there, small, trembling almost imperceptibly under my gaze, and I was aware of him. Harper looked at me, his expression asking if I wanted to act, but I said nothing. This beautiful Omega, he was a problem. He wasn't meant to be seen, and yet I couldn't look away. I didn't let my eyes linger too long on the Omega. Harper's jealousy was always close to the surface. Still, I reached out, took the Omega's hand, and pressed my lips to it. Harper's eyes narrowed. and I watched as he adjusted his robes while the other members of the harem whispered quietly, their faces full of curiosity and envy. Harper was always aware of the power he had by standing near me. He could be cunning and dangerous, but he was loyal. Even so, I let the Omega feel my attention, knowing it could cause trouble in a hall full of politics. I noticed the slight tilt of the Omega's head, a small flush on his face, and I understood how much impact one look or touch could have. "Tell me what the clans are saying, Harper." "Every alliance, every hidden threat," I said. He leaned close as he poured my wine. His scent was warm and faintly musky. "Every tongue is talking tonight, my king." Frostvale watches warily. Emberclaw waits for a mistake. Ironfang doesn't wait. They simply plan. I took the cup, feeling his closeness. "And you, Harper? Could any of these wolves betray me?" He chuckled softly. "I would not, Majesty. Not for any clan or fleeting glory. I serve you. I always have." I allowed myself a small smile, leaning back slightly. "You've always served me well." "And yet," I said, looking at his lips, then his eyes, "I wonder what you'd do if I asked more than loyalty." He raised a brow. "You could ask anything. I would consider it carefully, but I would not betray you." "Good," I said. "Watch the hall, Harper. Tell me everything. Nothing escapes you." He dipped his head. "Nothing escapes me, Majesty. Not tonight, not ever." A group of nobles approached, the Dustclaws. I let my eyes sweep over them, cold and deliberate, measuring their arrogance. "My king," the leader said, bowing, "we honor you tonight. Your strength and vision are unmatched." I inclined my head slightly. Flattering words. "And yet, Dustclaws, you are allied with Frostvale." Frostvale. I almost sneered. I hated Kristoff and all his wolves to hell and back. They had slaughtered my father and tried to take his throne. When I rose up and defeated Kristoff, he fled to Frostvale and built his own kingdom there. Then, the bastard attempted to steal my alliances. I wanted him dead, and anyone who worked for them. "Yes, well, it is an old agreement, Your Majesty. But what?" I asked, letting them hesitate. "Do you come as allies or as Frostvale spies?" Before they could answer, Harper's hand brushed mine. "They are our guests. A reminder of past alliances is enough. No need to dwell on old rivalries tonight." His voice was deceptively smooth. "Have mercy, my lord." I looked to him briefly, then back at the Dustclaws. "Very well. Speak honestly, or leave." The leader bowed. "We pledge ourselves to your court and to your strength." "See that you do," I said. My eyes kept drifting to the Omega with white hair. I had never seen him before. He wore beige servant's robes and carried drinks. Something stirred inside me. Something whispered, "Mine." "Your Majesty!" Harper's shout ripped through the hall. I twisted just in time as the attacker lunged, black fire crackling from his hands. The flames scorched the air, sizzling against my skin. I leapt back, claws slashing, but he was fast, faster than any human should be. His staff swung in a vicious arc, grazing my cheek. Pain lanced, burning bright, but my flesh healed instantly. Still, the sting made my blood boil. The Omega with white hair from before sprang forward, a blur of steel. He slashed at the attacker's throat. Black blood spattered the marble. The man convulsed, magic flickering and dying in his eyes before he collapsed, finally still. I staggered back, my chest heaving. My wolf howled, claws itching to break free to tear his body to shreds for daring to attack me, his king. But I could not move. The Omega was panting, staring at me. He had saved me, and my wolf was calling to him.
Chapter 2. Aiden. Tonight I will end my life. As I moved through the banquet hall, pouring drinks and keeping my eyes downcast, I felt the weight of my existence pressing heavily upon me. The room was filled with nobles and visiting wolves, their laughter and conversations a distant hum that barely reached my ears. I was a ghost in their midst, unseen and unheard. Some of the Patreons reached out to grope me as I passed, their hands rough and demanding. I flinched but said nothing, used to the indignity. It wasn't the first time, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. As an Omega who couldn't speak or scream, I was a silent shadow, a servant to be used and ignored. In my pocket, I clutched my precious frost beads, a small comfort from my home in Frostville, a home I could never return to. The beads were a reminder of the life I once had, before I was captured and brought to the palace. Now I was a servant, forced to pour drinks and endure the leering stares of those around me. "Hurry up," the headmaster barked. "Those people are waiting for their drinks." I nodded, hating the way his eyes lingered on me, the lecherous stare that made my skin crawl. There was no place in the world for someone like me, a mute Omega with no voice and no power. As I continued my duties, the weight of my decision settled over me. Tonight, I would end my life. It was the only way to escape the endless cycle of servitude and humiliation. With each step, I felt a growing sense of resolve, knowing that soon the silence that had defined my life would finally be broken. I walked around the room, careful and quiet, carrying trays, keeping my eyes low. But then I saw someone suspicious. He was clutching something in his pocket as he moved toward the king. The king sat on his throne, and his yellow eyes haunted me. I swallowed hard. Since I started serving here, I had ignored his glances entirely. I could not look at him. He was far too handsome. Black hair cut short, shaved at the sides. His skin was like molasses, so rich and dark, creamy almost, and his eyes the color of gold. The king had noticed me. They said it was dangerous when the king noticed you. He had a harem, wolves taken from powerful clans for loyalty and marriage alliances, all beautiful, all perfect. But the one people feared the most was Harper, his head concubine, wickedly clever and cruel, always watching, always waiting, and known for eyeing the crown as empress. I kept moving, careful to stay out of their way, my heart hammering, my wolf restless inside me. As the threat approached, I knew this was my chance to end it all, go out in a bang. But as soon as the delegates struck, something was wrong. No matter how many times the soldiers stabbed him with their spears and daggers, he kept coming. Horror filled me. It was just like the old tales from Frostvale. I remembered the stories, how my whole pack had been wiped out by dark magic. Rage burned through me. I grabbed a knife off the table and rushed forward, slashing the man's neck. He dropped like a stone. Everyone around me froze, staring in shock. The king was about to shift. His nails turned to claws, his face twisting halfway into something monstrous. But then his eyes met mine, and he stopped. That pull. I gasped and stepped back. He stepped forward, then caught himself. You... Harper, the Omega concubine, stammered. "You saved the king's life," one of the stewards said. "What is your name?" I panted, my throat tight, and pointed to the wooden tag around my neck. My mother made me wear it since I was a kid. It read, "I am Aiden. I am mute." "Apologies," the headmaster said quickly, stepping in. "This one's dumb and stupid. He cannot speak. Please let me thank you on his behalf." He grabbed my arm and pulled me forward before backing away. "Sorry to disturb you," he muttered, not daring to turn his back to the king. His claws dug into my wrist, biting and deep. I gasped as blood ran down my arm. A low snarl ripped through the banquet hall, freezing everyone in place. "Unhand him. Now," the king spoke, causing the hair on my arm to bristle. We locked eyes and I found I could not look away. "Your Majesty," the steward said, "perhaps have him brought to me tonight. Clean him up." "Harper," the king turned to his main concubine. "You will treat him as royalty, as I decree." "Understood." Something vicious flashed in Harper's eyes, but he smoothed it over. He rose gracefully, his robes flowing behind him, his veil hiding that sly mouth. As you wish, he said softly. Come, pet. Let us retire and get you prepared for the king. He took my hand. It was gentle at first, and I walked with him, letting him steer me away. I didn't look back at the king as much as my wolf begged me to. It wasn't until we were far away that Harper's hold turned into steel. Harper took me to the palace where the harem stayed. There were 10 of them, and they all regarded me with suspicion, their eyes narrowing at Harper's hold on my wrist. Once we were standing in the center of the gardens, lush and vibrant, with fountains that glittered in the torchlight, rows of flowering plants in every color, and winding marble paths, he turned to me. Strip him. My eyes widened. I shook my head frantically, trying to speak, but nothing came out. Harper's smile was cruel. I tried to grip his robes, but he stared down at me, so cold. The servants stepped forward, tearing at my clothes, until a stern voice stopped them. Harper? A deep voice rumbled from the shadows. Everyone jumped and bowed. The king bled from the shadows. What did I say? Harper smiled tightly. Your Majesty, you said to bathe him, and I was only doing exactly as you asked. What better way than in front of everyone, so none could miss your orders? Do as your alpha commands, the king barked, his voice full of viciousness. Harper flinched. Apologies, yes, Alpha, Harper whispered. This way, please. No, the king clipped. I will take over from here. Dismissed. The servants scurried out except Harper, who looked somewhat betrayed. But the king gave him an encouraging nod, and he fled, robes flittering behind him. The king walked over, his robes lined with black and gold, his face smooth and regal. You will choose your own servants, he muttered, then snapped at the servants who brought me some clothes to cover my shredded ones. Here. He put a whistle in my hand. Use this. Only I can hear it, and I will come. I stared into his eyes, wondering if this was a joke. He pressed his head forward, and I took it, my fingers trembling, and nodded. You cannot speak, I know, he said softly. But I like this silence. Finally. Aside from that, your face says it all. He reached out and touched my matted white hair, and I almost sank into his warmth. I don't know who you are or where you come from, but thank you for saving my life. You're loyal, I can tell. I want you never far from my side. I reeled back and dropped to my knees, shaking my head violently. No! It's too dangerous! I wanted to shout. I was dangerous. I attracted all kinds of danger. Please, I wanted to scream. The king chuckled, a deep timbre that made my eyes sting pink. Never bow to me, he said, touching my shoulder and guiding me to stand. It is I who owe you my life. I stared up into his eyes. He pinched my chin, lifting my face. My lips parted, and his large thumb ran over my plump bottom lip. Stunning. He cleared his throat and stepped back, signaling to the servants. Ali will be your personal attendant, he said to another servant. She is fast and strong. She will protect you if you find yourself in trouble. I have many enemies at court, if you couldn't tell. He turned to Ailey. Set his room right next to mine on the opposite side of Harper's. But sir, those chambers are meant for the Empress. Do as your alpha commands, he said, eyes flashing. Her mouth slammed shut. I want him cleaned up by tonight and brought to my chambers. Yes, your Majesty. She bowed, then took my arm gently. I didn't want to go. My wolf wanted to stay. But I went anyway, ignoring the strange pull toward him. The Empress's chambers. I felt bile rise in my throat. If Harper didn't hate me before, he'd murder me now.
Chapter 3. The King. It was a risk, putting him in the chambers reserved for the Empress. But once I learned he was mute, I knew I had to keep an eye on him at all costs. A mute. Christ. I took a deep breath and ran a shaking hand over my face. He was stunning, eyes the color of frost, hair whiter than snow. He couldn't speak, but he screamed at me with his eyes, louder than anyone ever could. I sat at the edge of my bed, chest heavy, my wolf restless. It paced inside me, thrashing, clawing to get out. It wanted to break through the secret doors between our chambers and claim him. My wolf called to him. My mate. I knew he felt it too. The way his skin had flinched and burned under my touch. The way his eyes widened like he recognized me. We both knew. And that was what made it dangerous. The thought of someone taking him, hurting him, when he couldn't scream for help, sat like a rock in my stomach. I couldn't let that happen. I waited in my chambers, pacing just enough to calm my wolf while not showing it. My hands drummed against the armrest of the chair, my mind spinning. They were bathing and dressing Aiden, preparing him to meet me. I tried not to imagine him in those clothes, tried not to imagine him vulnerable. My wolf howled at me, impatient, insistent. I thought of the packs, Dust Claws, Frostveil, Iron Fang, Obsidian Claw, their alliances, their spies, their knives waiting in the shadows. The banquet had been a warning, a test, and the assassination attempt had proven it. The man had been unstoppable, filled with dark magic. My guards had barely managed to hold him, and it had taken Aiden stepping in to save me. That Omega, helpless in appearance, had been the difference between life and death. Soon, everything would reach a boiling point. I could feel it in the air, in the way my harem whispered behind their fans, in the tension coiling around the castle. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about Aiden. His frost-colored eyes, the way he had moved, so small, so silent, but so dangerous in his own way. He had saved my life. And now, I was going to claim him. Claim him before anyone else could. There was a knock on the door, and I stood quickly, my heart in my throat, my wolf thrashing to get free. "Come in," I said quickly. Aiden stepped in, and my breath caught. He was completely breathtaking in baby blue and pale white robes. His hair was left long, spilling down his back. His eyes were wide as they took in the king's chambers. Ailey was by his side, standing at attention like the soldier she was. "Your Majesty," she said. "Leave us," I breathed, my eyes never leaving him. Aiden lingered in the doorway. His face lit up, speaking with his lips, even though no sound came out. So many words, and yet none of them could reach me, except through his eyes. My heart ached as he stepped forward. I took his hand. It was soft, but the fingertips were calloused from hard work. I vowed he would never work a hard day in his life again. "Do you like it, little wolf?" I whispered. He beamed and nodded at me. "Come eat," I said, gesturing toward the spread of food on the table. I took his hand and led him there. He moved gracefully, sliding into the chair beside me. "Eat." He stared at all the food, warm bread, slices of ham, soft cheeses, dried cranberries, plump grapes, and then he burst into tears. His hands trembled over the spread and his shoulders shook. "Why are you crying, little wolf?" I asked softly, though I knew he couldn't answer. He made no sound, but I could tell he wanted to. His head bowed, hiding his face. I brought a spoon of broth to his lips. He sipped it gently, eyes wide, then began taking more and more food. Bread, cheese, ham, grapes. He ate slowly at first, then with a desperate hunger that made my stomach twist. And then I realized, to my horror, that he had probably been starving. I swallowed hard, keeping my hand still so I didn't scare him. "You will never go hungry again," I whispered. "I promise." He looked up at me, eyes shining, lips trembling, and my wolf howled inside me. The pull between us was sudden and strong, urgent, dangerous. I reached out and touched his white silky hair, and I almost sank into his warmth. "You will want for nothing here. My wolf calls to you. You must never be alone in the palace if you can help it. I will not allow it." He stared at me, fear and trust mixing in his wide eyes. I reached out and brushed a strand of hair from his face. "Do you know sign language?" I asked. He shook his head. I will have them teach you immediately, I decided. We will find a way to speak, even if it is slow. He blinked, relief shining through his expression. His hands twitched slightly as if he wanted to reach for mine, to understand. I gave a small nod and squeezed his hand gently. He ate heartily, biting into bread, ham, cheese, and grapes as if he had never seen food before. I couldn't help but laugh at his puffed cheeks and the way his wide eyes kept glancing at me, curious, cautious. You know, I said, leaning closer, this palace wasn't just handed to me. Kristoff from the Frostvale pack, he tried to crush me, tried to kill my pack and my people. I fought back. There was a war, fire and blood, and the Obsidian Claws stood by me. They helped me take the throne that should have been mine all along. Everyone expected me to bow, to vanish, to be another forgotten prince. But I survived. And now? I let my hand brush his fingers lightly. Here you are. You saved my life. That counts for more than anything. He blinked, lips moving as if he wanted to speak, but no sound came. I understood. Silence could be its own language. This palace, I whispered, is dangerous. Every corner has eyes. My enemies, Kristoff, the Frostvale rats, they'd love to see me fall. My harem, they serve me, yes, but everyone has secrets. Harper, the others, they wait for mistakes. And yet, you risked yourself for me. That means something. That means you belong here. I kept talking after that. Longer than I meant to. About the war. About the nights I spent in the mountains with nothing but a sword and my wolf to keep me alive. About the people I lost. He didn't move, didn't interrupt. He just listened, eyes soft, head tilted slightly, like every word I said mattered. No one had ever listened like this. Not my harem. Not anyone. Everyone always wanted something from me. My loyalty, my protection, my throne. Not even Harper, my wolf, trusted this much. But with Aiden, it felt like home. I hadn't realized how much I'd needed that, how good it felt to be heard, even by someone who couldn't speak. He paused mid-bite, exhaustion finally catching him. I noticed the way his head drooped, his lashes heavy with sleep. Smiling, I stood and took his hand gently, guiding him toward his chambers. Tomorrow, I murmured, voice softer now. You'll eat with me again. Maybe then we can talk. About who you are, about Frostvale, about why you came here. He looked up at me, cheeks flushed, eyes bright and alive. My wolf stirred inside me, restless and sure. He wasn't just a guest anymore. He was the calm I hadn't known I needed. When it was over, I lead him back to his room, butterflies fluttering in my stomach as he allowed me to hold his hand the entire way through. We said goodnight, and as soon as the door closed, I took a deep breath. There was still something else I needed to take care of. The door to Harper's room slammed open, and he jumped at his vanity table, silk-pink robe falling off his pale shoulder, his eyes wide as he was busy removing his makeup. "Yea, Your Majesty?" he balked. The rest of the servants hurried to bow. "Dismissed," I snapped. Harper rose gracefully, hands clasped in front of him, head down as I approached. "What the hell do you think you were doing?" "Your Grace. You disobey a direct order and you tried to attack someone I told you to protect." Harper's face changed and I should have seen it coming. I knew he loved me, deeply. I knew he was so disappointed when my wolf did not take him. I knew it burned him when they whispered behind his back. Harper of the Vulpine Crest, a fox-born Omega gifted to me as a show of loyalty after the war. Graceful, clever, and deceitful by nature. My court loved him. My wolf did not. It stung. Harper froze for only a moment before the rage took over, his face twisted, tears already welling in his eyes. "After everything I've done," he shouted, his voice breaking. He grabbed the small bottles on his vanity, perfume, oils, creams, and threw them at me one after another. Glass shattered across the marble floor. "You choose him? That stupid mute Omega," he shrilled. "Harper!" He threw another bottle. It hit my shoulder and burst, sweet scent filling the air. I snarled, my wolf pushing at the surface, but I caught his wrists before he could grab anything else. His chest heaved, his breath ragged. "Enough!" I said, low and firm. He struggled, clawing at me, tears streaming down his face. "Why him?" he cried. "Why not me? I've done everything for you. I've loved you since." "I know," I said, my voice rough. "I know you have." He stopped, shaking in my grip. I pulled him close, pressing my forehead to his. He trembled, the fury melting into pain. "I love you, Harper," I whispered. "You've been loyal. You've stood beside me when no one else did." "Then why?" he sobbed. "But my wolf." I swallowed hard. "It's heard the call. I can't deny it. You know what that means." His body went limp, a small sob escaping him. I held him tighter, feeling his tears soak my chest. "I won't cast you aside," I murmured. "You're still mine, always." But the words felt hollow, even as I said them. Because deep down, we both knew. My wolf had already chosen. He whimpered, then leaned forward and kissed me. It was desperate, aching, like he was trying to pour every word he couldn't speak into my mouth. I cupped his face, breathing him in. He always smelled the same. Sweet amber and crushed violets, the scent of old temples and smoke after rain. "Harper," I murmured against his skin. His robe slipped from one shoulder, and for a moment, all I saw was the pale gleam of him against the deep bronze of my hands. He was light to my shadow, moon to my night. I let out a long sigh, pressing my forehead to his. The harem would fall apart without him. I would fall apart without him. No one else could keep the court in order, keep my temper from burning the palace down. He trembled beneath my touch, still breathing fast, and I forced myself to pull back. "Stay with me," I said quietly. "Keep the others calm. I'll need you for what's coming." Harper closed his eyes and nodded, though his expression said everything: pain, longing, and a love that refused to die, even when it broke him to pieces. For so long, it had always been me and Harper. Harper and I. His hands gripped my shoulders as if trying to hold me there, to remind me of everything we'd been through together. His breath came fast, uneven, brushing against my skin. I felt his warmth even through the silk of his robe, and the room seemed to shrink around us. "Don't," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Don't choose him." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hands found his waist, felt the tremor that ran through him. He pressed closer, and I closed my eyes, the sound of his breathing mixing with mine. The scent of him, sweet, smoky, familiar, filled my head until I couldn't think. "Harper." I breathed his name, my forehead resting against his. For a moment, we just stood there, tangled in the silence. It wasn't lust, not fully. It was everything we hadn't said, everything I was losing. He clung to me like a man drowning, and I held him just as tight.
Chapter 4. Aiden. The obsidian claw palace was so big it almost scared me. The walls shimmered like black glass, cold and smooth, and the torches along the halls burned a strange blue flame that made everything glow. Every sound echoed. Footsteps, whispers, the soft brush of robes. Allie walked beside me, her armor quiet, but her golden eyes always watching. 2 servants trailed behind, carrying my cloak and the small basket of flowers the king insisted I take when he gifted them to me. They bowed every time I turned, even though I didn't ask them to. It still felt strange. Not long ago I had been one of them, a servant who polished armor and scrubbed floors until my hands bled. Now I slept in the Empress's bed, a place meant for someone powerful, not a broken Omega with no voice. I could feel the stairs when I walked through the halls, Some bowed. Others just whispered. Why him? He doesn't even speak. The king's lost his mind. Their words didn't need sound. I could read them in their eyes. Ali tried to distract me as we walked. His Majesty's had the roses replanted, she said softly, motioning toward the gardens through a glass archway. He said you liked the smell. I nodded. It was true. The roses here were darker, almost black, their scent thick and sweet like honey and smoke. I reached for one through the open window and let my fingers brush the petals. Alive. Soft warm from the sun. I used to think I'd never feel those things again. Back at Frostvale, I had already chosen how I'd end it. Quietly. Alone. No one would have noticed. But then the king came, Dimitri, with eyes that burned like winter fire. He saw me when no one else did. He stopped me before I could do it. Now I was here, breathing, walking, learning to live. I still didn't know why he'd chosen me. But when I thought of his eyes, the sound of his voice, the way his presence filled a room, I felt something stirring deep inside, something I didn't have a name for. Ali cleared her throat. You'll have to get used to the attention, my lord, she said. Everyone's talking about you. You're the first to be chosen since the first empress's death. I blinked, nodding once. My lord. The words still didn't fit right. As we turned another corner, the scent of pine and rain swept through the hall. The king's scent. My wolf stirred instantly, tail twitching inside me, restless and alive. I pressed a hand to my chest and took a slow breath. Once, I wanted to end my life. Now, I was living one I never imagined, one that frightened me and thrilled me all at once. Maybe fate hadn't cursed me after all. Maybe it had simply been waiting. The corridors of the obsidian claw palace stretched on forever, carved from pale soapstone that caught the light like moonlit snow. Wolves were etched into the walls, great beasts with bared fangs and proud eyes, their shadows cast long and dark by the torchlight. Each one seemed to watch me as I passed. Frostvale had never been like this. Our halls were cold and narrow, made of cracked stone that always smelled like damp earth. There were no carvings there, no stories in the walls, no pride. Only silence and the echo of orders shouted at servants like me. Here, everything was power and history. The wolves stood for victory, for the king who had taken this land after the war, for the one who had taken me. Ali walked a step ahead, her hand resting lightly on her sword. I followed her through a wide archway, into the open courtyard. The air shifted. A hush fell over the people gathered there. Servants, guards, a few of the courtiers. All eyes turned toward the figure entering from the far side. Asher of Emberfang. He moved like music, slow and graceful, his green silken robes brushing against the polished stone. His skin was deep and smooth, the color of burnished bronze, and his long black hair fell down his back in a shining wave. Even his steps seemed practiced, light, elegant, deliberate. I'd never seen anyone like him. The scent of jasmine and spice drifted through the air as he passed. It clung to the courtyard like smoke. His eyes, dark and heavy-lidded, flicked toward me, curious, assessing. The whispers began again. That's him, someone breathed. The mute. And that's Asher, another whispered back. The crane of Emberfang. He stopped only a few feet away, his gaze locking on me. His lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. So this is the one, he said softly. His voice was like silk drawn across steel, smooth but dangerous. The king's new favorite. I froze, unsure what to do. My throat worked, but no sound came. I bowed my head instead. Asher laughed quietly, the sound light and cold. You don't speak. How quaint. Ali stepped closer, her posture tense, but Asher waved her off with a lazy flick of his wrist. No need to guard him from me, he said, though the edge in his tone made my skin prickle. I only wish to welcome him. He stepped closer, too close, until I could see the shimmer of gold along his lashes, dusted there on purpose. His scent was dizzying. His smile. Come, little wolf, he murmured, tilting his head toward the far doors. Let me show you around. It would be rude not to. Ailey glanced at me with uncertainty. I nodded once, slow, not wanting to cause trouble. Asher's hand brushed my sleeve as he turned, and I followed him, the courtyard's chatter dying behind us. The further we walked, the quieter it grew. The air heavier, the corridors dimmer. Something deep inside me began to twist uneasily. Asher led me through long, twisting halls I didn't recognize. The air grew colder, the lights dimmer, until even Ailey's steady footsteps were far behind us. "This part of the palace isn't often used," Asher said softly, his tone smooth but empty. "Still, it's beautiful in its own way. Forgotten things always are." I followed quietly, my hands clasped together, uneasy. The further we went, the fewer people there were. The stone walls here were cracked, the air dry and stale. We took so many twists and turns that I couldn't see Ailey anymore, and I wondered where she was. Finally, he stopped before a heavy wooden door bound with iron. "Go on," he said, a faint smile on his lips. "It's part of the old wing. You should see it." I hesitated, but he tilted his head, patient and calm. Slowly, I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed through the dark like thunder. My breath caught. I turned, grabbing for the handle, locked. No light, no voice, no escape. The shadows closed in. My heart started to pound, hard and uneven, the sound deafening in the silence. I tried to call out. Nothing. No sound, no scream, just air pushing uselessly from my lungs. My hands shook, my throat burned. And then, memories. The headmaster's office, the dark cellar, the nights I was locked away, silent and unseen. My body remembered before my mind did. I pressed against the cold door, clawing at it, but my fingers slipped uselessly. The dark swallowed everything. "Help me! Someone help me!" Panic ignited. I pounded on the door with fists and claws, over and over, until my knuckles split and bled, the sharp sting fueling my fury. "Let me out!" I wanted to scream into the void, my voice hoarse and ragged. Every slam echoed back at me, a cruel reminder of my powerlessness. I sank to the floor, shaking, the weight of the silence pressing on me until it felt like I couldn't breathe. Somewhere, faintly, I heard pounding, a voice shouting my name. Ailey's. Light broke through as the door burst open. Ailey rushed in, her sword drawn. "Aiden!" I couldn't answer. My body was trembling so hard I couldn't even lift my head. She dropped to her knees beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "It's all right," she whispered. "You're safe now. I've got you." She helped me to my feet, her voice steady, grounding. I clung to her sleeve as she led me back through the halls. My legs barely worked. My heart wouldn't slow down. Back in my chambers, the servants came quietly, saying nothing. They bathed me gently, the water warm and soft, washing away the fear that still clung to my skin. They dressed me in robes far too big for me, soft and dry. I crawled into bed, clutching the sheets tight around me. My chest still hurt, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. But at least there was light now. And warmth. Still trembling, I closed my eyes. Darkness came again. But this time I let it. I woke to a scent that stopped my heart. Deep, strong, familiar in a way I couldn't name. My wolf stirred immediately, whining softly, pushing me toward it. Warm hands moved through my hair, pulling me close. Strong, careful hands. Arms that held me tight without crushing, without asking. I didn't resist. I couldn't. The king's body pressed against mine, his warmth spreading slowly, carefully, through the trembling parts of me. My muscles relaxed in the weight of him. My wolf pressing closer, whining for more. I buried my face in his chest. My breaths came fast at first, shaking and uneven. I wanted to scream, to cry, but no sound came. And still, he held me. He didn't speak, he didn't question, he didn't ask for anything. He just held me. Gradually, my body stopped trembling. My chest stilled. My wolf quieted, curling against him. Finally calm. I closed my eyes, letting myself melt into the safety he offered, knowing, for the first time in my life, that someone was truly keeping me safe. The king held me until my shaking stopped. His warmth spread through me, calm and heavy like a blanket. I could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel so alone. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost tired. "There was a war," he said, "a great one that tore the Pax apart. My father started it, and I ended it." I looked up at him wide-eyed. His golden eyes looked far away, lost in memories. "He tried to make peace by force," Dmitri went on, "but blood only calls for more blood. When he fell, I took the throne. The other clans still hate me for it." He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. I was never supposed to be king. A black wolf born to a silver line. They called me a curse, a stain, but I proved them wrong. I watched him, my fingers clutching the sheets. His words were heavy, filled with pain. "Harper came from one of those clans," Dmitri said after a pause. "The Vulpine Crest. He was given to me as a show of loyalty. But his wolf, it tied itself to mine. He's been by my side for years." He sighed, running a hand over his face. "He loves me. I know that. But my wolf..." He looked at me then, and my breath caught. "My wolf calls for you. It's a bond I can't break, even if I wanted to. It's sacred, dangerous, and it's already begun. And Asher," he continued, "the crane shifter from Emberfang. His family wants power, wealth, influence. That alliance brought him here. He's calm on the surface, but he's driven by greed. Both of them, they have their own agendas. They want what they want. They've served me, but now..." He looked at me, eyes narrowing slightly. "My wolf has chosen you, and that changes everything." My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I didn't understand why my throat hurt, why I wanted to cry. "I'll protect you, little wolf," Dmitri said quietly. "No matter who stands against it. Even Harper." He reached out, his thumb brushing my cheek. I couldn't speak, but I wanted to. I wanted to tell him that I was afraid, that I didn't belong here, that I was just a servant who wanted to disappear. But all I could do was look at him, this man who carried wars in his eyes, and nod. The morning light spilled through the tall windows of the grand hall, casting the obsidian claw symbols in sharp relief across the polished soapstone floors. Dmitri sat on the throne, his presence commanding, while the concubines knelt before him, heads bowed in reverence. Even Harper had been brought to his knees among them. I took my place beside him, the weight of my role as empress pressing down. My hands trembled, my wolf quivering beneath my skin. Every eye in the hall was on us, yet I could barely draw a steady breath. Dmitri's voice rang out, cutting through the tense silence of the hall. "If anyone dares to mistreat him," he said, his golden eyes sweeping the concubines, "you will face death. My wolf has spoken." Gasps echoed through the chamber. I could see Asher's mask falter for the first time, the calm elegance of the crane shifter cracking as his dark eyes flashed with rage. "Asher, seize him!" He nodded once, and the guards moved like shadows. They seized the crane shifter, ripping his robes from his shoulders and hauling him to his feet. 1,000 lashes, Dmitri pronounced, each word cold as steel. "For locking the Empress in the iron room." I gasped, horror clawing up my throat. 1,000 lashes. Those words rang like a death knell. I turned toward the king, searching his face for mercy, but his eyes were hard as iron. 1,000 lashes meant ruin. Flesh torn from bone, tendon and muscle shredded until he could barely move. It meant a crippled life, and Dmitri's sentence left no room for mercy. "No, please, have I not served you well?" Asher struggled, screams ripping from his throat, curling and twisting as the first blows fell. His body arched, drenched in pain, his voice cracking as it dried out from the agony. The Emberfangs would not forget this, I thought, terror and disbelief coiling in my stomach. Did the king know what he was doing? My eyes went to Harper, his glare burned into me. I realized then the weight of it all. I was no longer invisible. I was no longer just another concubine, another servant to be ignored. I was his chosen, his empress. The hall seemed to hold its breath, and all I could do was stand there, trembling, as Dimitri's wolf stirred against mine. In that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again.
Chapter 5, Kristoff. The Frostvale Clan. I never forget. The Frostvale Pact never forgets. It is a curse, to carry memory while others turn their eyes. Years have passed, yet I remember every detail. I sat in the iron chair, its cold edges pressing into my back, face set like stone as the council passed decrees. Vlad, my most trusted advisor, kept glancing at me with worry. I ignored him. Their worry does not change the truth. I hate them for not listening. I warned them that Dimitri, the false king, was unfit to rule, that his luxuries and concubines were built on the suffering of our people. While our wolves starved in the cold and hunger, he laughed in his palace halls, his harem lining his steps like trophies. They refused to hear. I clenched my fists. Duty and desire cannot coexist, they say. I say they must, or all is lost. My wolf still calls for what is right. My heart still remembers the boy with frost-white hair, the one who saved me once, whose courage kept me alive. General Kristoff, Vlad said softly, leaning forward. You cannot act alone. The council. I act for Frostvale, I cut him off. For our people, not for council approval, not for favors, for the wolves who cannot speak, for those who starve. If Dimitri continues to sit on his throne, Frostvale will burn. Your Majesty, we must approve the trade routes before the harvest season, one counselor said, voice trembling. I cut him with a glance. Trade comes second. Our borders come first. The safety of Frostvale is not negotiable. We will delay all negotiations with them until we are sure we will not be breached. Dimitri was a warmonger just like his father, useless and hot-headed. What man needed that many concubines? A madman, a dangerous one, and his reach was stretching beyond his control. I had heard there had been another assassination attempt. Another clan had tried to kill him, the Dust Claws. I scoffed inwardly. Why had they tried to kill him? Was it because he had taken their queen, married her, and degraded her as a mere concubine? Or maybe it was the fact that he ravaged their lands, leaving nothing for the people to live off. Or was it his lavish, expensive balls and banquets that nearly bankrupted them? The king. He was the king of nothing, of ashen horrors. And then I had recently heard he'd slashed one of his concubines almost to death. Asher from the Ember clan, a beautiful Omega who had his flesh mangled, and for what? It sickened me. But the Obsidian Claws, they are not our concern today, I said, but hard. I do not trust them, and neither should you. Vlad leaned closer, whispering. Majesty, the envoy from Obsidian Claws arrives tomorrow. This is delicate. You cannot appear combative. I let out a dry laugh, almost bitter. Combative? I have little time for them. Frostvale is my life. The Pact's loyalty is my duty. I will not falter. The room fell silent. My yellow eyes scanned each counselor. We will meet them, hear their demands, but make no mistake. Frostvale will not bend. Vlad exhaled, relieved, but I did not soften. Inside I felt the pull, my wolf, restless, unsettled. There was more at stake than borders. Something I could not yet name tugged at me, but duty came first. Always. The council meeting ended hours ago, but I could not go back to my quarters. The hallways of Frostvale were empty, ice blue light streaming through the frozen windows, reflecting off the polished stone floors. The wolf symbols carved into the walls seemed to watch me. I walked slowly, my boots echoing, remembering. Those halls were always cold, yet warmer than my heart feels now. And there was always that boy. Always white hair, pale blue eyes. Even as a child, he was impossible to forget. I stopped at the fountain in the center of the courtyard, staring at the frozen water. I remembered sneaking through these halls as a child, seeing him play near the fountain, laughing softly. My wolf had stirred then, a pull I did not yet understand. Guilt and regret pressed on me. I had abandoned Frostvale during the coup, leaving my pack, leaving him. I had chased duty, thought desire was weakness, and in doing so I had left the boy and so many others vulnerable. The boy had been taken, and for many years I did not know where. I searched until it became impossible to. Now the halls were quiet, empty. I was alone. And yet the memory of him filled every step I took. The echo of my boots was joined by another set, lighter, precise. Vlad, my general, my oldest friend. Even now the man carried himself like a statue, tall and rigid, broad shoulders pressed beneath dark furs, eyes as broken ice. His dark hair was streaked with silver, a reminder of battles we had both survived. "Your Grace," he said quietly, bowing slightly. "The council grows restless. They want your word on the obsidian claw truce." I did not answer at once. My eyes were fixed on the frozen courtyard, on the memory of him. I had been searching for that boy for years, ever since he was expelled from Frostvale for a minor infraction. Even then I had known his eyes would haunt me forever. Vlad did not flinch under my silence. He never did. "You should know," he continued. "I have news about the boy, Aiden. He has been taken by the Obsidian Claw Pack." I froze. The chill of the hall did not compare to the ice that ran through my veins. My wolf growled low, restless, pulling at me. "Taken?" I repeated. "By Dimitri?" Vlad's nod was grim. "Yes, he serves there now. The boy, the Omega you remember, he is, well, safe, but surrounded, protected, yes, but not free." Horror gripped my heart. The king was not a man of honor. And Aiden, the wolf, he was weak, a mute. The king would destroy his innocence, slaughter what goodness was left, decimate the kindness within him. My hands trembled as the image burned in my mind. The boy trapped and powerless, bending under Dimitri's cruelty. I clenched my fists. All the bitterness I had carried, the betrayal of Frostvale, the hunger of my wolves while Dimitri sat in luxury, the audacity of the Obsidian Claw to flaunt their wealth, flooded back. My duty, my longing, my anger, they twisted together, a storm I could barely control. Vlad stayed by my side, silent, knowing better than to speak again. His presence was a tether, but it did little to calm the fire inside me. The hall felt smaller, tighter, suffocating, as if the weight of what was coming pressed down on us all. I hated Dimitri. I hated him with a fire that clawed at my chest. He had taken something from me, something I could never reclaim. A fragment of my trust, my hope, perhaps even my heart, that he could wield it, crush it, and call it his own. My blood boiled at the thought. I will go, I said finally. I will see Aiden. I will bring him home.
Chapter 6. The King. The morning sun spilled across the palace gardens, melting away the frost that clung stubbornly to the marble paths. Aiden was there, kneeling among the blossoms, his pale hair catching the light like threads of spun silver. Butterflies drifted around him in lazy spirals, apparently mistaking him for some enchanted flower. Honestly, I couldn't blame them. I leaned against the archway, my hands tucked behind my back, trying not to look like a lovesick fool. But my wolf stirred beneath my skin, restless, and that word, mine, rumbled through me. I forced it down, though the ache it left behind was almost unbearable. I wanted to lavish him with gifts, feed him from my own hand, build a world where nothing could ever touch him. Instead, I stood there like some ridiculous statue, pretending I wasn't consumed by the thought of him. My eyes flicked away, remembering the punishment I had given Asher. Was it too much? Yes, absolutely. And there would be consequences. The people were restless, hungry, and muttering in corners. I had been neglectful. My father's shadow still haunted me, but that was changing. Soon, very soon, I would not be like him. I would not let the capital starve while I sat in luxury. Alliances were necessary, even if I hated Kristoff and every dustclaw who thought they could get clever. Frostvale had lands, grain, stability, and if I wanted the people fed and the city quiet, I would swallow my pride and play the diplomat. Other clans too. Peace was a necessity, not a luxury. And yet, there was Aiden, humming softly among the blossoms, barefoot, utterly unaware that the monster in love with him was also the king trying desperately to keep a country from burning. His silence made the world itself hush, and I found myself grinning despite everything. He doesn't know what kind of man watches him, I thought. He doesn't see the monster hiding behind the crown. The breeze teased the edges of his robe, carrying his scent, sweet, like rain on fresh petals. My heart tightened. Wanting him made me dangerous, and I had enough battles to fight already. The palace bells rang in the distance, a reminder that duty waited even in beauty. I straightened my shoulders. Soon, I promised myself, soon everything will change. Before I could even process it, Aiden flopped onto my lap, completely abandoning any notion of dignity. He held out a clumsy bouquet of blossoms, presenting them like some heroic knight. One petal landed on my chin, another stuck in his hair. I leaned closer, raising an eyebrow. Are these for me? I asked. He gave a little nod, eyes sparkling, and pressed the flowers against my chest like he was sealing a treaty. I tried to hide my grin. And you picked them yourself? All of them? Or did the garden just surrender? He tilted his head, one brow raised, and then shrugged dramatically, like obviously, "Sire, I conquered them all." "Do you expect me to wear these?" I asked, holding the petals up. Aiden batted them toward me, then smacked his own cheek and pointed at me with a mock-serious expression, as if to say, "Wear them, of course, or face the consequences." I shook my head, laughing despite myself. "And what if I eat one? Do you take offense?" He gasped, clutched his chest, and gave a very exaggerated, mournful look, as if my chewing flowers was a personal betrayal of the highest order. My wolf growled low beneath my skin. Mine. I shoved it down before I started growling at a mute omega. I sighed, pretending to be stern. "And you, my little troublemaker, you plan to stay in my lap all morning?" He flopped down again. sprawled like a tiny, delicate king, one hand brushing petals onto my robes. Then he nudged my hand toward the bouquet, coaxing me to smell them. I leaned in, inhaling the delicate fragrance, and cursed how ridiculously cute he was. I tried to straighten, trying to look like the serious king I was supposed to be. But my wolf stirred beneath my skin, restless, growling low. Mine, it rumbled. I shoved the thought down before I started growling at a mute omega. The butterflies floated higher, and Aiden wiggled a little closer, tilting his head like he was daring me to do something about it. I had to bite back a laugh. What am I supposed to do with you? I thought. You're impossible. The palace bells rang distantly, reminding me that duty waited even in beauty. I straightened my shoulders, but one hand lingered on the petals, one eye on Aiden, silently promising myself, soon I will find a way to keep you close. And maybe, just maybe, steal a kiss before the kingdom notices. Boots echoed across the garden's stone archway. General Oren approached, cutting through the stillness like a shadow draped in black steel. His armor glinted in the morning light, and the wolf sigil of Emberfang burned red against his chest, bright as old blood. He bowed, one knee to the ground. "Your Majesty," he said, "the envoy from the Obsidian Wolf Pack has been received by Frostvale. They wish to arrange a meeting. Their new ruler seems eager to discuss a truce." But his mouth had tightened when his eyes met mine. Just a flicker, but enough. Anger smoldered there, carefully banked behind the discipline of a soldier. He didn't need to speak for me to feel it. The whole Emberfang clan still seethed beneath that polished restraint. They hadn't forgiven me. Not for Asher. I saw it in the way his jaw clenched, the way his gaze lingered on me a moment too long. Respect demanded silence, but rage lived behind his composure. The memory of Asher's punishment still hung between us, his blood, his screams, the 1,000 lashes that had nearly broken him. And Oren, he hadn't forgotten. None of them had. I could almost hear it in his silence. "You went too far, Majesty." And perhaps deep down, I knew he was right. But one look at Aiden made all those thoughts flee. I tore my gaze from Aiden, the warmth draining from me. "A truce?" I asked quietly. "Yes, sire." "Their king, Kristoff of Frostvale, extends the offer himself." The name hit me like ice water. Kristoff. My wolf went still, then growled low in my chest. Aiden turned to look at me then, sensing the shift in my scent perhaps. His expression softened with concern, though he didn't speak. My heart clenched again. I wanted to reassure him, to reach out and say it was nothing, but duty called me elsewhere. "I will hear it later," I said curtly to Oren. "For now, leave us." He bowed again and withdrew, his heavy armor clanking down the corridor until silence returned. The butterflies had all gone, leaving only Aiden in their place. He turned back to the flowers, radiant and untouched. I sighed quietly. Even in peace, war finds a way to whisper my name. When I reached the council chamber, my temper had already begun to smolder. I stood at the tall window, hands clasped behind me, watching the world stretch out under the crimson banners of Emberfang. "Kristoff," I muttered under my breath. "That traitor." Once he had been my father's most trusted general, a man of honor, or so we'd thought. A brother in arms, a loyal wolf. And then he turned on us. "He tried to murder me," I said quietly, though no one was there to hear. "He murdered himself when he betrayed the pack." I remembered the smoke, the burning towers, the bodies frozen in the snow. Kristoff's rebellion had carved open the heart of the Empire, leaving scars that never healed. My wolf snarled at the memory. He will pay. He will kneel. But even as I spoke the words, my mind flickered back to the garden. The flash of white hair, the unspoken laughter, the boy too pure for the politics of wolves. My heart softened again, though it shouldn't have. Aiden has no place in this darkness, I thought. He should never know the blood that built this throne. And yet, the world I ruled would swallow him whole if I did nothing. So I swore silently, if Kristoff seeks peace, I'll meet him, but not as a friend. That afternoon, I returned to my chambers, my thoughts still tangled in war and wolves. I didn't hear him approach. A flash of white caught my eye, and then suddenly, Aiden was in my lap, light as air, laughter spilling from his throat though no sound came out. I froze, the world narrowing to him. His hair brushed my chin, soft as silk. The faint warmth of his body pressed against me, and I felt something inside me uncoil, something savage and tender all at once. He tilted his head back, eyes wide and trusting. My hand moved on instinct, cupping his face, my thumb brushing the soft curve of his lower lip. My wolf hummed, pleased, possessive. You, I said softly. You move like wind. No sound. Just magic. He blinked, his cheeks turning pink. His fingers brushed my wrist, so gentle it nearly undid me. My wolf pressed against my ribs, desperate to claim, to mark, to make him ours. But I wouldn't let it. Not yet. His innocence was something sacred, something I would never destroy. I want to show you something tonight, I whispered, the words escaping before I could stop them. Will you come? He nodded instantly, eyes bright, and my chest felt too tight. He trusts me. Spirits help me. He trusts me. When he left the room, the air felt colder. I sat there long after, my hand still tingling where I'd touched him. Night came draped in silver. The forest shimmered with frost as we walked, fireflies swirling around us like living stars. Aiden followed quietly beside me, his white robe glowing faintly in the dark. When we reached the lake, the shrine appeared across the water, its jade pillars rising like ghosts from the mist. The air was thick with old power, the kind that whispered of queens and sacrifice. This is the shrine of the empresses, I said softly, where every queen of the obsidian claw pack was laid to rest. My mother was the last empress. Aiden's eyes widened, wonder painted across his face. He stepped closer, his fingers grazing the carved wolf sigil on the door. My mother used to pray here, I continued, before my father's rage took everything from her. From me. He looked up at me then, gaze luminous, full of questions he couldn't speak. I do not bring others here, little wolf, I admitted, but you should know who I am. The blood I carry, the curse I fight. He tilted his head, waiting, patient as always. My father thought love made a wolf weak, I said. He believed only fear could rule. I swore I would never be like him. But when I look at you, my throat tightened. You make me weak, Aiden. And I do not care. He hesitated, then reached out, his small hand brushing mine. Fireflies drifted between us, golden light flickering over his face. Then slowly, he began to sign, his movements uncertain but full of heart. I am happy. The words hit me harder than any blade. I smiled for the first time in what felt like years and raised my own hand to sign back, clumsy and halting. Me too. He laughed silently, the corners of his eyes crinkling. And for that single breath of time, the world didn't feel like war. But when I glanced toward the horizon, I saw frost crawling over the trees in the distance, the herald of a northern wind. It was the Frostvale's banner. Kristoff was coming, and the peace I'd found in that moment would not last.
Chapter 7. Aiden. The palace was unlike anything I had ever seen. Its high ceilings gleamed with crystal frost, each chandelier shimmering like captured starlight. When I first stepped into my chambers, I thought there had been a mistake. The walls were carved from smooth white stone, the floor laid with rugs so soft they felt like clouds beneath my feet. It was mine. My own room, my own bed, my own window with curtains that glittered faintly when I touched them. The concubines had stayed away, each one avoiding my gaze when we crossed paths. Even Harper, who once trailed me everywhere with his mocking smiles, wouldn't come near me anymore. Perhaps they feared the king's wrath. Or perhaps they saw the way his eyes followed me. When I caught my reflection in the polished mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. Clean. Rested. Dressed in fine silks that shimmered faintly like frostlight. My hair loose and trailing down my back. For once, I didn't look like the forgotten boy cast out of Frostvale. For once, I looked like someone who belonged. And maybe that was what frightened me most, because what if I lost it again? The thought followed me, even when I smiled, even when my fingers brushed against the golden embroidery of my sleeves. Still, I couldn't help it. I felt happy. The warmth of the palace, the hush of the halls, the soft rustle of the silks on my skin, all of it made my heart swell with something I hadn't felt in years. Safety peace. Hope. Days passed quietly, each one gentler than the last. I began learning sign language, practicing until my hands ached. The scholars were patient and kind, but none were as patient as the king himself. I spent the next few days learning sign language. The king's court had scholars, teachers, and servants who were patient and kind, each one showing me how to move my hands with grace and meaning. But none of them were as patient as Dmitri. Sometimes he sat across from me, his eyes warm and amused as I tried to keep up. His hands moved with fluid ease, sure motions that looked beautiful even in silence. And then, one afternoon, he gifted me something precious. A small box, carved from pure white jade. Inside, nestled on silk, was a necklace of pale blue gems, Frostvale beads. My breath caught. I had seen only one like it before, long ago, worn by my mentor before I was expelled. These were made long ago, Allie whispered behind me as she combed my hair, her fingers light and careful. There are only 2 sets in existence, Aiden. The king treasures them. You're lucky he gave one to you. Lucky. The word lingered as the comb slid through my hair, untangling each knot. Allie hummed softly, a tune I didn't know. The palace air smelled faintly of jasmine and ice. Lucky, loved, protected. And yet, a strange ache settled in my chest, a longing I couldn't name. One morning, I asked if I could see the city. Dmitri hesitated but agreed, assigning a pair of guards to accompany me. From afar, Emberfang glittered like gold, but up close, it was different. The palace rose above everything, immaculate and untouchable, but the streets below told another story. The cobblestones were cracked, the air thick with smoke and dust. Wolves in tattered cloaks huddled near empty stalls, eyes hollow from hunger. Children with matted hair chased each other barefoot through puddles of ash water. I stopped walking, my chest tightened. How could something so beautiful cast such long shadows? The guards shifted uncomfortably beside me, but I barely noticed. I stared at the broken houses, the half-burned banners that once bore the king's crest. When one of the children smiled up at me, a small boy with soot-streaked cheeks, I smiled back, kneeling to offer him one of the fruit pastries I'd brought from the palace kitchens. His eyes went wide, and he darted away, clutching it to his chest like treasure. I watched him disappear into the alleyways, my heart aching. The palace was beautiful, yes, but beauty, I realized, could hide rot beneath gold. When I returned that evening, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The laughter, the hunger, the quiet despair. Dmitri ruled a kingdom of fire, but his people shivered in the cold. That night, Dmitri invited me to his chambers. The room glowed with soft lamplight, the air heavy with the scent of amber and smoke. He looked tired, his black hair falling into his eyes as he leaned against the edge of his desk. When he saw me, his face softened. "You look troubled," he said, his fingers already moving in sign. His hands were surer now, graceful in their own way. I went outside today, I signed. To the city. His brows drew together. You shouldn't have gone alone. I wasn't alone, I signed quickly, smiling to calm him. But the people, they're hungry, Dimitri. They need help. He was silent for a long moment, his golden eyes shadowed. I know. He finally signed back. But it's not simple. I frowned, my fingers trembling. It should be. His expression softened and he motioned for me to sit beside him. I did. His body was warm, his scent comforting. We sat like that for a while, his hands moving more easily now, our words flowing faster. Once I started signing, I couldn't stop. I told him everything. About the frost veil, about my expulsion. About the nights I spent freezing, about the day his soldiers found me and brought me here. And then I told him the truth. I've never been this happy. His hand paused midair. Then slowly he smiled, a quiet, gentle smile that made my heart ache. He reached out, drawing me against his chest. His fingers slipped into my hair, his breath warm against my temple. I couldn't hear the sigh he gave, but I felt it. Deep, slow, heavy with something like longing. For a moment I thought, maybe he feels the same. Every time his gaze lingered, every time his lips curved into that faint, tired smile, I felt heat rush through me. He was beautiful. Not in the way statues were, cold and perfect, but alive. The glow in his golden eyes held both power and sadness. His lips curved just slightly at the corners, as though he wanted to smile but didn't know how. My wolf stirred restlessly beneath my skin, aching for him, wanting him, needing him. Did he kiss the others, I wondered? Did they touch him the way I wanted to? Did they know how gentle he could be when he smiled? My hands trembled. I couldn't stop imagining what his lips would feel like. So I did the only thing I could. I acted. I leaned forward and kissed him. It was clumsy, too fast, my heart slamming in my chest, my fingers curled in his shirt, desperate, terrified. No one had ever been this kind to me. No one had ever made me feel like I mattered. He froze, pulled back slightly, his eyes wide in surprise. Aiden? He murmured. My name like a sigh, like he didn't want to hurt me. I felt my stomach twist, my throat tightening. He doesn't want me. But then he smiled, soft, pained, and touched my cheek. It's not that, he said gently. I just want you to be comfortable. I am, I signed frantically. I want you. I love you, I wanted to say. I am your first alpha, right? I nodded frantically. My first and only. I signed desperately. I want to give myself to you. His breath caught. You can't say those things to me, Aiden. My wolf can't take it. The sweetness of it. It doesn't matter, I want only you. So many people ignored me. So many people hated me. I am worthless. Nothing. I hesitated, tears pricking my eyes. I wanted to die. You saved me too. We saved each other. Oh, Aiden, he whispered. The king's gaze softened. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me again, that maybe he wanted to, but instead, he only smiled and patted my cheek, tender but distant. My heart sank, and as I looked into those golden eyes, the ache in my chest deepened, not because he had rejected me, but because I realized how much I wanted him to love me back. Chapter 9. Aiden. I sat among the concubines, my back straight, a porcelain cup trembling faintly between my fingers. The tea was hot enough to burn, but I welcomed the sting. It kept me grounded. Across from me, Harper lounged like a fox playing at civility. His smile was all teeth. It didn't reach his eyes. Every curl of that smirk cut like a blade. We were gathered for tea, a farce of harmony arranged by the senior attendants. Unity, among the royal harem, they called it. But unity was a lie. The air here hummed with quiet war. Harper leaned toward one of the other concubines, his voice low and poisonous, smooth as silk dipped in venom. Look at our little wolf, he murmured. So quiet. So fragile. I almost feel sorry for him. He paused, lips curling. Almost. The others tittered, their laughter light but uneasy, brittle like glass. They all saw what happened to Asher. I didn't move. I didn't look up. I simply traced the rim of my teacup with one finger, slow and calm, the porcelain whispering under my touch. My throat burned with words I could never speak, but I held his gaze when it finally found me. Let him look. Let them all look. Silence could be a weapon too, and mine cut deeper than any of their words. Do you even understand what's happening here, little wolf? He hissed. You sit there like a mouse, thinking silence will save you. It won't. Everyone sees you. Everyone knows how small you are. He leaned closer, his breath brushing my ear, and added with venomous amusement, and don't think the king will care about your trembling little hands. You're nothing but a toy, a distraction. And toys break easily. A toy that would soon become queen, I wanted to say. I shook my head, signing stiffly. I understand more than you think. His eyes narrowed and he chuckled softly, cruelly. Do you now? Then we'll see how long your bravado lasts, won't we? The other concubines tittered behind their fans, but I felt only the icy grip of fear and the fire of defiance swelling inside me. As long as I had the king, I told myself, I wouldn't ask for more. Harper didn't let the moment pass. He leaned back in his chair, eyes glinting like Enid blades, and began explaining the harem to me. You're new, he said smoothly, so you don't understand the rules. Every concubine has their place, their rotations. The king expects certain attentions at certain times. You watch, you listen, you obey. That's how you survive here. I nodded slowly, signing in tiny motions. I understand. He chuckled darkly. Don't pretend. You'll make mistakes. Everyone does at first. Some concubines think they can skip the rotations or ignore the ruts. That's when they get punished. You don't want that, do you? I shook my head, signing, no. Good, Harper said, his fingers drumming the table. The king doesn't care if we have lovers, he added, but discretion is everything. You do as you're told, you keep your head down and you'll last. Fail and... He let the threat hang in the air, a slow, venomous smile curling his lips. The other concubines nodded along, murmuring their agreements, watching me closely. I felt all eyes on me, my heart tightening, but I kept still. Rotations, Harper continued, pointing to different concubines. You see who takes precedence, who handles the ruts, who keeps others in line. Everyone has a role. Learn them. Remember them. The king will not forgive mistakes. I was not expecting this. Rotations. Shifts. Multiple lovers. My heart clenched. It would be my duty to not react, to not show weakness, but I didn't know if I could stomach it. Dimitri was so kind to me, so loving, and to think of him sharing that with another Omega made my stomach clench, especially with Harper. I signed back slowly. We'll try. He leaned closer. Try isn't enough. You're in the king's favor now. That makes you visible. That makes you dangerous if you stumble. I stayed quiet, swallowing hard, feeling the weight of his words. Even as he tormented me, I understood a little more, how the harem worked, how power and jealousy twisted the cord around me. What's that around your neck, little wolf? Your security blanket? Don't tell me the king gave it to you because he felt sorry for you. The beads were from my homeland. Frostvale and the king had turned it into a beautiful necklace. It meant everything to me. I tried to shrink in my seat, signing softly. They are precious to me. Harper laughed, loud and cruel, drawing the attention of the other concubines. Precious? How fragile. You really think a string of beads will protect you? Or is this just another way to beg for attention? I looked down, hugging them closer. Please, leave them. I signed, but my hands were trembling. His smirk turned into a snarl. He reached across the table, fingers closing around the beads. No, you won't hide from me. I lunged slightly, hands outstretched, but he yanked them from my neck. The beads slipped through his fingers, clinking against the porcelain of the table. Some shattered immediately. My chest tightened, my stomach twisting. "Stop, please!" I signed desperately, my hands shaking as I tried to gather the fragments. Harper's laugh was harsh and cold. "Ha ha 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 ha! Fragile! So fragile! You really are the king's toy, aren't you? Nothing more." I looked up at him, tears stinging my eyes, and he stepped on the scattered beads deliberately. "See? They're worthless, just like you will be if you can't survive here." I fell forward, sobbing silently, my hands scraping at the broken beads on the ground. The other concubines whispered, eyes flicking nervously between me and Harper, no one daring to intervene. "You see, little wolf," Harper hissed, crouching near me. "You're nothing without him. And even with him, you're weak. I should crush you completely." I froze, gasping silently, my fists shaking as I tried to gather the pieces. My eyes blurred with tears, my chest aching with helplessness. I could not scream. I could not protest. I could not do anything but sit there, trembling. As much as I hated Harper, he was right. I was worthless, not fit to be the Empress. "Enough!" A voice cracked like thunder. Harper froze, stunned, just long enough for Dimitri to stride across the courtyard. In one fluid motion, he grabbed Harper's shoulders and shoved him back. "You will not touch him again," Dimitri growled, eyes glowing, wolf radiating power. "Do you hear me?" Harper stumbled, caught between fury and fear. "But he began, voice trembling. "Do not touch him," Dimitri snarled, his voice icy. "He is mine." "And you, Harper, will learn your place." Harper reeled back like he'd been slapped. I stayed frozen, silent tears still falling, as Dimitri lifted me into his arms and I clung to him. The warmth of him, the security, the absolute power, it crushed my fear and replaced it with relief. My wolf stirred wildly, aching for him, echoing my own desperate need, and I let myself be held. "You're safe now," he whispered, pressing me close. "No one can hurt you, not Harper. Not anyone. Liar." He wasn't around. He couldn't promise anything. I curled against him, my body still trembling, heart hammering. The shards of my beads lay forgotten on the stone floor, but in his arms, I felt protected, cherished, and for the first time, truly seen. I felt so small, so helpless, trapped in my own silence. My trembling hands clutched the few remaining beads, chest tight with panic and grief. He carried me swiftly to my chamber. His hold was protective, grounding, unyielding. I stayed curled into his chest, silent tears still falling. I felt his hands on my back. "Shh, it's okay," he whispered. "You're safe now. No one can hurt you." When he lowered me gently onto my bed, he never let go. I buried my face into the silk sheets, shaking. Every fiber of me felt raw, fragile, yet somehow safe in his arms. My wolf pulsed beneath my skin, desperate for him, aching need. But I stayed still. I could only let him hold me. Eventually, the trembling eased. My tears faded into quiet streams. He kept me pressed close, his hand resting protectively on the back of my head, his heartbeat steady against my ear. For a moment, I let myself believe I could stay like this, just breathing, just existing, just his. But as the silence deepened, bitterness crept in, dark and familiar. Could I really share him, my mate, with dozens of others? With Harper? My chest burned. I could still feel the sting, the sound of my beads shattering under Harper's boot. My precious beads. A gift. A promise. He'd crushed them one by one, each snap echoing my own choked sobs. And he hadn't even flinched. He'd only smiled, that cruel, beautiful witch, and walked away like my pain was nothing. I hated him. I hated his face, his voice, his shadow. But worse than that, the king loved him. The king had his harem, his precious collection of beauties, all kneeling at his feet, all vying for his touch. Could I really stand beside him as his empress and watch? Could I smile through it, plan his nights, his ruts, his pleasures, while pretending it didn't gut me alive? Bile rose hot and thick in my throat. I clenched the sheets in my fists, willing the thought away, but it sank its claws in deep. The ache in my chest hollowed into something jagged, bitter. Even in his arms, I could taste the loneliness, sweet and poisonous. I loved him. God's help me, I loved him. But love wasn't enough to stop the world from breaking me. The room was quiet after he left. His scent still lingered like smoke, cedar, and something darker that clung to the sheets. I curled into the warmth he'd left behind, the silk soft against my skin. For the first time in what felt like ages, I let myself breathe. My eyes drifted shut, exhaustion heavy and sweet. Sleep came quickly. I dreamt I was home again, in Frostvale, walking the wintry gardens. I dreamed my mother was there too. I dreamed I could talk, that I could speak, that I had a voice again. I dreamed I was alive again. Then, there was searing hot pain. Claws sank into my hair, yanking me upright. My cry caught in my throat, smothered by a gloved hand. The sheets tangled around my legs as I struggled, heart pounding, but the grip only tightened. It's a good thing you can't scream. Then, something hard smashed over my head. End part 1.